Imagine waking up one day to discover that two-thirds of your country is being claimed by your neighbor. Shocking? Unbelievable? Yet this is the reality for Guyana as Venezuelans vote to take over their oil-rich region. But how did we get here? We're talking about a region so rich in oil that it could change the economic trajectory of an entire nation. A controversy that has led to escalating rhetoric, troop movements, and tensions between two countries. A situation so complex, it has the world holding its breath. To understand the full story, we must rewind the clock and look at the timeline of events leading up to this decision. The roots of the Venezuelan-Guyana conflict can be traced back to the 19th century. It's an intricate tale of colonial powers, territorial disputes, and resource-rich land. The origins of the conflict between Venezuela and Guyana, two South American nations, have their roots deeply embedded in the colonial era. The disputed area known as the Essequibo region covers two-thirds of Guyana's territory. It's a land rich in oil and natural resources, a lucrative prize for any nation. The saga started when Spain and the Netherlands, the colonial powers of the day, first drew up the borders of their territories in the late 18th century. The Treaty of Munster in 1648 between Spain and the Netherlands initially defined these borders. However, it's the subsequent shifting of these boundaries that sparked the dispute we see today. Fast forward to 1831 and the creation of British Guyana, now known as Guyana, by the British Empire. The British claimed the Essequibo region, a claim disputed by Venezuela based on the historical borders defined by Spain. This culminated in the arbitration of 1899, where an international tribunal attempted to draw a final boundary, largely favoring British Guyana. However, Venezuela later contested this arbitration, alleging that the tribunal was biased and the process flawed. This led to the signing of the Geneva Agreement in 1966, a diplomatic effort to find a peaceful resolution to the dispute. But the agreement did not settle the issue, and the contention over the Essequibo region persisted. Fast forward to the present day, and the dispute over this territory has taken a new turn. In recent years, the conflict has escalated, with both countries staking their claims more aggressively. The age-old dispute took a new turn when Venezuela, not content with the status quo, began to assert its claims on the Essequibo region in Guyana. This region, rich in oil and covering two-thirds of Guyana's territory, has always been a bone of contention between the two countries. Venezuela's claim is rooted in historical borders, while Guyana sees this as an existential threat. The rhetoric has been escalating, causing tensions to rise. Amid this, troop movements have been reported, adding a military dimension to an already complex situation. The International Court of Justice, stepping into the fray, ruled that Venezuela should not take any action to modify the current situation in the disputed territory. It was a clear message to Venezuela to keep things as they are, but it seemed to have little effect on the Venezuelan government's stance. Instead of backing down, Venezuela continued on its path, seemingly undeterred by the International Court's decision. The Venezuelan government's next steps were unclear, but there was a growing sense of unease in the international community. This was a dispute that had the potential to destabilize the region, and the world watched with bated breath. Meanwhile, in Guyana, their worst fears seemed to be coming true. The specter of annexation loomed large over them, and they began to call for international support. This was not just about a piece of land, it was about their sovereignty, their very existence. In the midst of all this, there was one man who stood to benefit from the situation, Venezuela's President Maduro. A successful claim on the Essequibo region could bolster his political standing, making him a hero in the eyes of many Venezuelans. But any attempt to assert a claim would face international resistance, and Maduro no doubt was aware of this. And then, in a move that shocked the world, Venezuela decided to put the matter to a vote. Venezuela's decision to hold a referendum on the disputed territory marked a significant turning point in the conflict. The question posed to the Venezuelan electorate was clear, yet controversial, asking them whether they agreed to create a Venezuelan state in the Essequibo region of Guyana and incorporate it into Venezuelan territory. A region rich in oil and covering two-thirds of Guyana's territory, the Essequibo has been a source of contention between the two nations for centuries. The Venezuelan government has claimed the land based on historical borders, while Guyana sees any encroachment as an existential threat. Now, through the democratic process of a referendum, Venezuela sought to bolster their claim. The response was decisive. Venezuelans voted overwhelmingly in favor of the proposition. This vote, however, does not stand in isolation. It is an act embedded in geopolitical complexities and international law. The International Court of Justice has previously ruled that Venezuela should not take any action to modify the current situation in the disputed territory. Yet the referendum can be seen as a defiant move against this ruling, a move that's likely to have minimal practical implications but significant symbolic meaning. The escalating rhetoric around the issue has already led to troop movements and heightened tensions between Venezuela and Guyana. In a world where borders are increasingly seen as inviolable, such a move is bound to raise eyebrows and stir the pot of international relations. The Venezuelan president, Maduro, may derive political benefit from the vote, but any attempt to assert a claim based on the referendum results would face international resistance. The referendum, thus, is not just a vote. It's a statement, a provocation, and a potential catalyst for further conflict. The referendum has sparked international controversy and raised tensions between Venezuela and Guyana. The results of the referendum have left the world in suspense, with many wondering what Venezuela's next steps will be. The vote's outcome, favoring the creation of a Venezuelan state in the oil-rich Essequibo region, has left more questions than answers. The Venezuelan government's future actions remain uncertain, yet the echoes of this decision reverberate far beyond the borders of the disputed region. This vote, seen by Guyana as a step towards annexation, has stirred an existential fear, leading to troop movements and escalating tensions between the two nations. The Venezuelan government may have long claimed the land based on historical borders, but the International Court of Justice has ruled against any action to modify the current situation. The practical implications of the vote may be minimal, but the ripple effects are already being felt. In the midst of this geopolitical chess game, President Maduro might find a silver lining. The referendum, regardless of its international reception, could serve as a political tool for him domestically. By stoking nationalistic sentiments and asserting territorial claims, he could consolidate his position and rally support among his base. However, this move isn't without its challenges. Any attempt to assert the claim would likely face staunch international resistance. The world watches with bated breath as the specter of conflict looms over the horizon. The verdict of the people has been cast, but the real test lies in the aftermath of this decision. The world is watching, waiting to see how this geopolitical drama unfolds. The story of the Essequibo region, rich in oil and steeped in controversy, is far from over. Only time will tell what the future holds for the disputed territory. So what can we take away from this complex and ongoing conflict? We've traced the lines of a historical dispute, one that's been simmering for centuries and now seems to be reaching a boiling point. This contention centers around the Essequibo region in Guyana, an area rich in oil and covering 2/3 of Guyana's territory. This land, coveted by its neighbor, has become the epicenter of a geopolitical tug-of-war. The Venezuelan people have expressed their opinion, voting overwhelmingly in favor of creating a Venezuelan state in the Essequibo region. It's a move that Guyana sees as a step towards annexation, an existential threat to their sovereignty. But the practical implications of this referendum remain uncertain. The International Court of Justice has ruled that Venezuela should not act to alter the current situation in the disputed territory. So while the vote may have stoked the fires of national pride and potentially bolstered Maduro's political standing, it doesn't change the legal status quo. In the wake of this referendum, we see troop movements and escalating rhetoric, raising tensions between Venezuela and Guyana. And while Venezuela may face international resistance should they attempt to assert their claim, it's clear that this dispute is far from settled. As we continue to monitor this situation, one thing is certain: the stakes are high and the world is watching.